I also had my computer on stupidly quiet. Sorry.
It's his fault, Foz.
Of course.
It's all my fault tonight. I mean, I sort of forgot to invite you guys to the recording.
You didn't have enough. You didn't have a long enough nap, apparently.
Combined with a little too much wine, I think it's going to be a great show.
You're listening to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, a travel podcast with hosts Stephen Seagraves, Foz Mahmood, and Seth Miller.
Hello, and welcome to episode 358 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. I'm Stephen Seagraves, joined this week by Foz Mahmood and Seth Miller. Hey, guys.
Good evening.
From a very, very static situation compared to last week's 80 miles an hour. I like this much better.
Is it hard to record while in a car?
On I-10 in the panhandle of Florida and or southern Alabama, I would say it wasn't that bad because traffic was pretty light.
Yeah.
There is the certain irony of the part where, well after we stopped recording, I came about 3 inches away from rear-ending a police officer.
Oops.
Like, my foot slipped off the brake while I was trying to find a gas station to refill the rental car on the way in, and we started rolling forward, and Chris Sloan, who was in the front seat next to me, started like, just like sort of incoherently shouting, and I looked up and slammed the brakes, and like, it was one of those things where like, you can't see the front edge of your car really, so you don't know how close it was, but like the shadows and the spacing suggested to me that I was very, very, very close to having a very, 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 very bad afternoon.
So what you're saying is this episode could have been brought to you by the Alabama State Trooper Association.
It would have been the Pensacola local police department, but yes.
Yes. Straight from the jail cell. That'd be great.
And also, like, we all would have missed our flights as a result, and yeah. And that was a day where, like, things were already going badly travel-wise, so, yeah, good times.
Good times, yeah. Well, as follow-up, though, do you guys want to talk about the new AA rules? And
I want to get you guys' take on them. Obviously, we did talk about that a bit last week with Chris and Zach, but I'm curious what you guys think. Actually, about both of them, or all three of the things we talked about last week, right? We talked about American, we talked about Marriott, and we talked about Breeze. But American and Marriott in particular, do you have thoughts on, like, does the American change make either of you want to become an Advantage Elite, or think you'd make it easier?
I don't have any desire to really fly American based on everything I read and Foz's glowing reviews.
And their meltdown this weekend.
And their meltdown, which we'll talk about. But I don't think the rules really are attractive to me. Just because it's spend-based, right? So,
well, it's spend-based, but it's also credit card spend-based.
Yeah, and I just don't know that I would put enough on. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that's really interesting.
You need to learn how to manufacture spend.
Well, so then are you going to do it, Foz?
No, I don't have the time for that crap.
You do it, not me.
Also, you have to actually fly to get the swoosh.
Yeah.
But how much do you have to fly?
30 segments.
Yeah, that's hard.
I mean, assuming you're trying to also keep other statuses, yes, it's a lot.
But Foz, now that you're in, like, you're going to be moving to the Philly area, general area. I'm not going to tell people where you're at, but you'll be flying out of Philadelphia, I assume, some?
I already fly out of Philadelphia some. Like, I'm right in the middle between Philadelphia and Newark, so I'm maybe 10 minutes closer to Newark than Philly.
But, like, would this wouldn't intrigue you to fly American more?
No, because it would require me to fly American more. Like, United, as much as they drive me batty at times, it's a known, and there's something to be said at 3.6.
Yeah,
it just finished the 400,000.
You're just looking for that lifetime global services.
Yeah, I want to be able to walk into the terminal naked and have them hand me a towel.
Can I use that as the show title?
Sure.
So I don't even know where to go.
I mean, I thought I was going to be the troublemaker tonight.
So okay, so let's talk about Marriott, right? I don't think either of us is. I think what threw me off with the AA stuff was you could spend up to X plat, but then still not get it because you haven't.
You have the status, but not all of the benefits.
Yeah. I think that's kind of irritates me a little bit. But
hasn't Delta done a similar thing where you have to pick which benefits you want? Air Canada Aeroplan did a similar pick which benefits you want, true. Right? Like, on the one hand, I feel like it's no, you actually just get the benefits that are useful to you, as opposed to like an airline telling me I get 3 checked bags, which I almost never use. From time to time, I need 1 or 2 bags. Right. But telling me I'm getting value from having free checked bags on every flight when I'm not using it is a little silly. But at the same time, like, telling me that I have to pick in advance that I'm going to want free check bags. And if I didn't pick that and later this year my travel habits changed and all of a sudden I need them, right? It turns out that actually 2021, I've needed check bags far more than usual because I've been traveling with tools.
Yep.
And you can't carry on a power drill.
No?
It turns out that 7 inch, any tools longer than 7 inches are not acceptable in the cabin.
Huh? Makes sense.
But you can't check the battery. Can't check the battery, though.
You can if it's installed in the tool. It can't be separate.
Oh, see, United wouldn't let me check the battery.
Even connected?
Even connected.
Okay, I may be I thought it was only if it was separate. Also, now that I think about it, let's just not tell anybody I did, except all of our listeners.
It's too late.
And I'm not going to edit that out because I'm way too lazy for that.
I think the difference is when it's connected, it just looks like it's part of the tool.
Yeah, they well, and like the TSA doesn't care necessarily, but the airline might. Anyway, yeah, I've needed to check bags though, and so like if I hadn't, but I wouldn't have known that in February, right? I didn't know that until March or April. So like, would I pick that as one of my benefits? No.
Yeah.
So I get the idea of like, you get to pick the things you want, but at the end of the day, it's also like that's the airline saving money and not giving everybody everything, and then hoping for breakage because you didn't pick the thing you actually ended up needing later in the year, or have to pay for it, or pick the wrong thing and don't use it. So
yeah, I mean, I think from that perspective, right, like the customer experience piece is what kind of goes downhill because like Delta's saying, you can pick these things, but I feel like with American, the implementation is what matters. So you can pick these things, and then if we don't implement this right, it's still going to piss you off. That's my thing. Like, right, it all comes back to what the customer is experiencing.
The problem is it creates more friction, right? Yeah. And the thing that you can't easily see on a spreadsheet, that you can't easily quantify on the spreadsheet, is what does that friction cost you as a corporation, right? So you've by diluting the benefits or making customers choose which ones they may or may not use, right? Like upgrades are a great one, right? Most people almost never get upgrades, so why even force them to pick it?
Yeah.
And why would you? I mean, there's also two types of upgrades. There's the short haul and long haul, and which one are you advertising? What are you picking at? Like, I feel like long haul, arguably, I don't know, it depends a little bit more, but I don't think those are. I would say as a percentage, those clear better probably than just the complimentary or the E500s or whatever.
Oh, I'd absolutely agree with you. But the counterpoint to that would be there's a bunch of people who never leave the country.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? And they are top tier status. So what benefit does it do them? Generally not much.
Yeah.
Sure. Until that one time the boss calls them like, hey, really sorry, you got to go to Brazil, London, Tokyo, right? I mean, like this year, none of those places. But, or maybe it's this year, it's like, hey, London finally reopened, you got to go tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you don't have any SWOs anymore. And company policies, you fly coach. So that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, agreed. But, what is the benefit to someone who doesn't plan on stepping foot on an international plane, or who can't even imagine that, right? Yeah, you can get that unexpected call, but if you're not really thinking about it, you would never even pick those. The thing I don't understand about the American thing is why now? At a time when you start trying to get people back into your planes, why would you disenfranchise your elites when you have such captive audiences?
Costs.
See, I'm going to challenge the disenfranchise accusation or assertion. I think there's a lot of people that are going to be very happy to have the credit card spend-based option to augment their status.
I mean, I know, granted my sample set is very small, but I have two friends who are AA frequent flyers, and they both dislike the new changes. But again, like, why would you want to create friction at a time when you want to get people back on your planes? Right? This basically opens the door for people to look at competitors if the competitors don't match quickly.
I don't think anyone's going to match this, but at the same time, like, what's the friction that's being created? That I have to pick that I want SWOs? Because you already had to pick that.
No. I don't
mean 120,000 for.
I don't mean I don't mean that point. I mean the changes in regards to how you earn status.
Just in general.
In general,
I guess I wonder, right? If you look at if I'm already EXP and I had to spend, was it $15,000 or EQDs? Mm-hmm. So that was 165,000 points straight up, but now it's 200. Would that 35K difference have been? Is that actually worse? And ostensibly yes, because the price went up straight flying. But if I bought all those tickets using my AA credit card, that's at least 15,000. So now it's the spread. I'm not sure that the spread's that bad.
Okay, that's fair, but you just introduced points in revenue 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
You're now introducing another change, right? People are still trying to figure out the first change, and now you've changed it again at a time when they haven't really been flying much. It looks complicated.
I will agree with that point. I think that was the thing that struck me first about the program was this looks complicated. Like this looks like a pain in the ass.
I think it looks easier. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
I really do. I also I also have no idea how like my numbers stack up this year relative. Like when I flew, I was AA Gold this year. I had because it was I think soft landings from 3 years ago, but or I think by accident I kept flying them and earned enough status, and then whatever is extended because of the pandemic. I wonder. I'm guessing my qualification wouldn't have happened just because I only buy cheap tickets, or I tend to buy cheaper tickets, but I don't know.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear from our listeners. Like, what do they think? Do they feel that it's more complicated? Do they feel that it's a good change for them? Are they excited? Tell us. We want to know. I think I kind of agree with Foz. I'm a little confused as to why AA is doing this now, but maybe they got some feedback that told them this is the right way to go. So if you're a listener and want to tell us, we always love feedback. So
yeah, I will say I think it's a more straightforward set of rules. Like you earn points, they come to status. Whether it's more points required or it's harder to qualify, I think we could debate, but I think it's more straightforward to not have to track 3 different things.
Yeah. So then let's talk about Marriott. How do you guys like big middle fingers?
Are we surprised for Marriott?
No, not really. I have a ton of Marriott points though, and I'm wondering, do I wait and burn them later?
You'll always be able to use them for the Courtyard Inn in Bangor, Maine.
But not the one in Portland where you actually want to be.
Yeah.
Which turns out it's actually a pretty nice hotel.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure it's a Courtyard. There's it's not a full service Marriott. There's one sort of right downtown that's pretty nice that I've stayed in a couple times. Anyway, no, I don't know. I think that's one of those, like, they're not fully decoupling from an awards chart. It's just that there's going to be variability, right? It's like day of week and peak off peak, but every night could be a different rate.
But that's where it starts, right? This is just a stepping stone. I mean, this just further solidifies hoarding points is a bad idea.
Going back 9+ years now to the points for this podcast where we started.
Exactly.
So you guys know we're coming up, I think, almost on 10 years, right?
We should probably do that one in person, shouldn't we?
Yeah. Find out exactly when it was, but
I guess we should find out for year 8 or year 9 right now first.
Year 9.5. So for me,
no, we're in year 9. It's May 2020.
Oh wow!
May 2012 was our first episode.
So May of next year.
May of next year.
All right, got to pick somewhere fun to go and drink beers and do a live show.
May 10th.
Marriott is. Like, so for me, I'm talking about points hoarding. I have a ton of Marriott points because I never burned them because I was staying there for
too
work.
worried about earning more, or just staying for work?
Just staying for work. Like I just never had a chance to really burn them. I think I burned some every now and then when we would go on a vacation or something. But I mean, I got more than 1 million, and I'm just like, okay, so what do I do now? Do I just burn them on everything, or do I wait to see what this award charts? I feel like if I wait, it's stupid. I should burn them at the cheapest points that I could, or the cheapest rate that I could.
Only if you're actually going to travel.
Yeah.
Don't travel just to burn them. I mean, I have the same problem. I have probably 1.4, 1.5 million Marriott points sitting around, and I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I don't think I can burn them fast enough if I wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? Because, I mean, a 3-night stay or 4-night stay could be just 120,000 points, so I'm not going to do 10 of those. So,
and I'm not paying 80,000 points for the Courtyard at the airport.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it. I think we all kind of knew it was coming, and we'll talk a little bit about Hyatt in a little bit. But I think this is just the way things are going, right? Like, is Hilton the only one that's left that's not doing this?
Yeah, but Hilton did. They still have an award chart, but also like they don't. And if you can either get points at this quote unquote saver rate, which is the chart rate, or they're worth a half cent.
Gotcha.
And it's like, and maybe you'll get lucky, but the reality is it's probably just half a cent. And so Hilton was I would argue one of the earlier ones to go this path.
So could this be a way to appease the hotel owners given the last 18 months?
That they're going to get increased comp for room nights?
Yep.
For award nights?
Yep.
Sure. Do you have to, I mean, and I know the answer to this, do you have to charge the customer more if you're going to do that? And obviously the answer is yes, but or you're going to because you can.
Well, I don't think this is going to settle the lawsuit in Phuket, if that's what
that wasn't where I was going. But, I mean, if the hotels feel like they're getting market rate,
or closer to, at
or
least.
close to it, right? They might not be so apprehensive or difficult, right? There's obviously some stories where hotels are claiming that they don't have reservations when you make a reservation because they don't want to give you the room.
Yeah.
Or it's the Meridian in New York City?
Yes.
What were they doing?
This is like 4 or 5 years ago now.
This is old Starwood. This isn't even Marriott. This is
That was
Starwood.
because that hotel was involved with some fraud, right?
Right, that's what I was joking about.
Yeah,
They used to claim that they always claimed that they were like 90% full. So for award nights, you got comped better as a property owner if you were full.
Yeah, because basically Starwood would pay a rack rate when the hotel was full for award nights.
Or a discounted rate when it wasn't. And so basically this hotel faked occupancy numbers to pretend it was full all the time. So all of its reward nights were full rate.
I thought it was both New York and Palm Springs because there are 2 Parker hotels.
I only remember the New York one, but yeah.
Yeah, because it's the Le Parker Meridian. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, big lawsuit. Anyway.
Yeah. Let's talk Breeze. I mean, I didn't know you could put that many business class seats in an A220, but more power to them.
Right, this is like the High J763, but shrunk down to a single aisle plane.
Yeah, for transcons, I guess. I mean, I'll say this. If they put that, that's a better product than Alaska has on their 737s. Even their A321s. It's a better product. So in that case, if they were actually flying the routes I needed, I'd consider it. Especially if they're only going to upcharge it by what, $100? They said
he was saying 50, but yeah. I mean, Cranky Brett Snyder did a good analysis of like if it's 145 seats versus 126 seats, which are sort of the top and the bottom end ranges. 126 is what they actually put on it. So you lose 20 seats. So those 36 seats have to sell for the equivalent of the revenue of the other 20.
Yeah,
essentially. And if you're charging $100 per, then 36 for 20 is really just a little bit more than $50.
Yeah.
Now, would they all have sold anyways? Can you optimize that differently for longer haul versus shorter haul? Was $100 base fare to consider versus $150 reasonable? There's a lot of variables in that come into play. I think, as someone who is flying Spirit next week or this week, when this episode's coming out, and who bought the big front seat because even with all the fees, it was cheaper than an economy seat on the comparable nonstop flights, and I'm on a nonstop Spirit flight. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yes, I would pay for the better, more comfortable, whatever, assuming I get the opportunity, right? The experience, the comfort. So
I feel like too they're in the way Breeze is kind of doing this point to point market stuff that they're trying, right? Doing transcons on point-to-point places could be very lucrative, right? When people need to get from the East Coast to the West Coast and vice versa, and they want to fly into Burbank or Ontario, and they want to do it, out of BWI or somewhere like that. Norfolk, yeah, exactly.
You're going to like Charleston or New Orleans or Norfolk or Tampa to Ontario.
Yeah,
I don't think they can get LAX gate space.
Well, I mean, I have friends that live in Burbank, and they have family in Norfolk. They would take that in a heartbeat. Like
it's the old tampon route.
Oh God! People are going to be like, "You."
So for those at home listening and confused with what Foz is talking about, this is if I remember correctly, $120 A fare, which was a discounted first class ticket.
Yeah.
Pre-merger United.
Yeah.
Tampa to Ontario with up to 4 connections, so you could do Tampa, Dulles, JFK, San Francisco, Ontario in PS first.
Yeah,
which was a big deal.
Yes,
and I think I was right. Like it's about 120 round trip, maybe it was 200 round trip, 100 each way, something like that. It was
pretty stupid cheap,
absurdly cheap, and it wasn't like random mistake fare. It was just like regularly available.
Yeah, it was like you could find it consistently.
I feel like that's how Lucky made 1K often. Seriously, I don't think he was shy about that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Let's get to the real topic. How about that? I mean,
What a good idea.
I do have one comment though. You made a comment in regards to Breeze
20
having
minutes in.
He made a comment about Breeze having a better product than Alaska, and I'd like to know who doesn't have a better product than Alaska in the front cabin.
Spirit.
You put that much value on the Alaska's food and beverage?
They're not bad. Food and beverage is not bad.
Okay.
I mean, if the price is right on Spirit, the thing is with Spirit, they only fly really up and down the West Coast. They don't go anywhere east of here, really. So,
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing them on a nonstop out of Puerto Rico, so we'll see.
to Florida.
Home, straight to Boston.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Oz like even United F maybe isn't like domestic F is not as nice as Alaska. I'd say.
I'm not a big fan of United F, but I would say it is better than Alaska F.
You think so? I mean, I'll go. We've talked about this before.
You're
But
talking transcon or short haul?
like just the regular F, the regular F, not the transcon F.
Non-transcon, I would still say I think United is slightly better.
I just don't like the tray tables, like the new marble bullshit. I don't like it.
Okay,
So-
that's fine.
Half of them are broken, so it's unusable.
It's like the old United. You should be used to this.
Steve was more of a continental kid.
Yeah,
so-
I was in Houston, so.
It's like the old United without the sky kits. That's the only drawback.
I still have
So
some,
remind me why this is a good thing.
I still have some old sky kits sitting around here somewhere. Let's talk about the AA meltdown this weekend.
Got a flight attendants to spare?
Is that what the meltdown was all about?
Yeah, so hundreds of flights canceled. I think they canceled their 20% of their flights on Saturday. Sunday's going to be pretty nasty. Also, apparently they're mostly flight attendant or flight crew unavailable.
Is it?
And I've heard it's a lot flight attendant. Basically, we're end of month, and there was a storm-ish on Thursday or Friday down in Dallas that displaced some planes. This is almost identical story of what we heard from Southwest a couple weeks ago and Spirit a couple months ago of things got a little bad and then got really bad in a hurry after that.
So do they have a bunch call out because people don't want to pick up trips? Is that, or people don't want to pick up trips and they're not picking up where people are displaced? They're not picking up those trips that they would have filled?
It sounds like it's a combination of they're out of reserves because you get to the end of the month and people have worked a lot of hours.
And they can't work anymore. Or
you can't work anymore. So there's limits to the number of hours you can work on a day, in a week, and in a month. But that's an interesting challenge. And then there's, also it's a holiday weekend. Yeah. And Halloween always has a lower number of passengers, so that sort of will help a little bit this weekend. But Halloween on a Sunday with good parties on Friday and Saturday night, I'm not surprised that people are forget it. I'm bored this weekend. I'll pick up a couple extra hours and make some money. Also significantly increased chance of getting punched in the face and having broken bones as a result. It turns out if you're a flight attendant on American these days. So I don't really blame them.
Is it mostly mainline, regionals, or both?
I'm seeing it as mainline. So I haven't seen when that's based on the FlightAware is showing it as mainline cancels. So and FlightAware tracks the regionals separately.
And on the same kind of related, right? Spirit is talking about slowing their growth because they can't hire enough people. So these things are intertwined, right? Across the industry.
And what's interesting about the Spirit one is they're saying they can't get enough people in Fort Lauderdale, especially. And what I can't tell, but I don't think that one's flight attendants or pilots. I think that's
gate
agents and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Americans 536 flights canceled so far on Saturday, and another nearly 400 delayed. More than 100 canceled out of DFW. In and out of DFW is bad. Charlotte 75. Chicago 45. So 42 out of Miami. Those cities are including other airlines, but let's assume that most of those are American. Now the Spirit one is super interesting to me because Spirit was trying to massively grab share, and again, when you're only 4% of the market anyways, getting to 5% is huge growth, but also still just a pesky little pain in the butt, not a real difference maker. But they were super trying to grab share out of this rebound. So was Allegiant. A lot of the LCCs and smaller airlines, Frontier, the same way. But I think Spirit is now saying that they sort of had expected 10% growth in Q4, and now it's probably down to only 5%. Or 10% was going to, or 5% of it, or half of it was in Fort Lauderdale. they were expecting they're going to miss 10%, and half of that was in Fort Lauderdale. It's a lot out of Fort Lauderdale that's not happening. And, we've talked a lot about, I think not on the show, but separately, about like what's keeping, quote unquote, keeping people from going back to work, and why is the overall workforce shrunk. And there's a lot of things that play into it, but it's not great.
It's having an impact, right? Like we see it here in Portland differently. We see it here differently, right? And taking a different impact, right? That we can't get our FedEx packages delivered because there's not enough drivers here. So we avoid FedEx, but in other places it's airline, customer agents and gate agents, and it's wild.
What's interesting, I'm looking at the FlightAware page. It's not just A8 though. Southwest has a ton of delays today. 87 cancellations, but 681 flights delayed.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Out of Dallas, the storm was very big. I will say that.
Love Field doesn't show up by Origin Airport.
Oh, really?
Yeah. By airline, Southwest has 681 delays. It doesn't specify the airport.
No, Dallas, if I look at Dallas, it's only, I got to click. Delayed 35, canceled 20, but that's only the last 4 hours, I think. So, it's hard to tell where the Southwest cancels or delays are all happening. But I don't know. Listen, there's not a lot of slack in the system, and there's not going to be a lot of slack in the system for a while yet to come.
Yeah. Yep.
So pack your patience and maybe a Snickers bar. So the weather's way worse up here than it is in Dallas. So I don't even know what they're complaining about.
Let's talk about Ireland plane registrations, or should I say Kazakh plane registrations?
I don't understand this, and I put it on the topics list because I'm hoping you guys do. Mm-hmm. Kazakhstan and Ireland signed an agreement where Ireland is going to handle the inspection and registry of airplanes for Kazakhstan.
Okay.
I don't understand.
I have a feeling Kazakhstan doesn't want to run an inspection and registration organization. They don't have the people or the know-how to do it.
It could also be that they get instant credibility by having Ireland do it.
True.
Yeah. I mean, right, like the comparable I can come up with is there's some, and I think you're probably right, Stephen. That makes sense, right? Like we don't want to train and maintain a group of people that understand and manage how like aircraft inspections have to happen. So we will outsource this to another country that does it for a very reasonable fee, right? Like there's countries in Central and South America or Latin America that do it to the United States. So there's a lot of NREG aircraft flying around in Mexico or in Costa Rica or etc. But Mexico still does its own, I think it's XA is the Mexico registration prefix, right? So like it still has its own, but some of them are like Aeromexico has a bunch of N-registered planes flying around, which I think is tied to the leasing company, not necessarily to because the country doesn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, a different reason for it, right? Like, hey, yeah, we'll let you do this, but we want to make sure we can repossess the planes. And so by putting them on a different registry where we have good relations, that makes it, right? It's like, does that make it cheaper for the airline to operate because it's easier to repossess the plane when the airline fails?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if you go and look up, I believe their registration is UN and UP. I think that's the two-letter codes, and I don't know why it's different. But there are planes. I mean, there were Kazakh airline planes registered with that number, that code. So they clearly
have a lot of them. They have a commercial airline.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it complicates it a little bit, or my explanation, it kind of shoots it
UP.
down.
No, I mean, like I said, I think a lot of countries have them. It's a matter of, do you want to maintain that and like you said, like inspections and managing all that process, right? I mean, I remember, I'm just thinking back, there was the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. There's an acronym for that. I'm getting it wrong, but like they share that regulatory role. And when a few years ago, someone tried to register a 747 in Antigua, and it was a huge problem because officially they had to do it. They had to manage the process. And I talked to the guy who was in charge of the registry at the time and like in charge of the organization. He's like, yeah, I mean, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but he's like, yeah, we don't have the expertise. We don't have people who can manage that. We're going to have to outsource it back to the United States. We're going to basically fly someone from the FAA in, have them look at this plane to decide if it's safe or not. And then we'll stamp it based on their approval. Kazakhstan is UP. What was the other one you had? UK?
UN.
UN.
So my understanding of the way this looks is like Afghanistan and Kazakhstan maybe share the registration. or
That's like a
Kazakhstan,
strange choice.
or Kazakhstan, or Afghanistan. I mean, relies on Kazakhstan for the registrations, which is interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm finding things like Comlux has some planes that are registered there and stuff. So it's interesting. Yeah. They have some E-145s.
Change from UN to avoid confusion with United Nations, according to the wikis. So apparently they used to use UN, but United Nations got confused.
I mean, unless it was an all-white plane.
Or all baby blue.
Yeah, exactly.
Put a hat on top.
If any of our listeners know, we would love to hear it. If you know definitively why it's, or I mean, you can send us wrong answers only too. I don't care. It's not gonna break my heart.
We'll repeat them on the show as though they're accurate. So we got that going for you.
We won't even fact check them.
Yeah, exactly. we do little to no research here. United's London Heathrow just brain dump, or I should say, just
capacity dump.
Yeah, it's crazy. 22 new and returning flights, right? So Boston
daily. So sorry, this is by call it the end of March when the IATA season shifts over. 22 daily flights in and out of Heathrow.
Yes. So Boston
finally going to actually launch.
Yep. Newark gets
7.
increased, yes, to 7.
And so that was, they historically had 5. They announced that they were going to do a 6th in late 2019. They had a big media event, and that was the next growth, and then it never happened. So instead of 6, they're just going to do 7 because what the hell?
Because why not, right? I mean, what's one more flight?
It's hourly service, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, and then a morning flight.
That 11 p.m. I like that.
So where are they getting these slots from?
I don't know, is the short answer. The 6th, when they got it, was someone in Lufthansa Group.
That one I remember. But
so I would assume that it's a similar deal, right? Like, if you're Lufthansa Group and you're seeing post-Brexit impact and less trade and less demand to be connecting all of your cities to the UK, I don't know, maybe you pull one of the Eurowings flights to Dusseldorf out or something like that. Give it to United, because United going to pay you for the JV. Excuse me.
Maybe.
That's my best guess. I would assume it goes there. Especially because JetBlue is still scrambling, trying to find a way to keep its Heathrow slots long term. They did get approval to keep running them for the winter season because there's enough returned slots. But
well, let's keep going, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Denver gets it's
goes
daily
to double
flight.
Daily.
Yeah. It had a daily flight. Now they're going to get a second daily on a 789.
They're both 789s out of Denver. Presumably, BA is going to keep its flight out of Denver.
Yep. And then San Francisco gets a third daily using a 777-200ER.
That one was also 789? I thought there was 2 777s and then a 789 for San Francisco.
You might be right.
I think the addition was a 789.
Yeah. Oh. LA goes back and has its 1. Houston gets 2. Chicago gets a 3rd.
And Dulles has 3.
Dulles has 3, one of which is, I think,
the morning 752.
Morning 752, and then the 2 in the evening. So it's a lot of lift into London, but at this point, at least, pretty confident that those borders are going to stay open.
Yeah.
But I guess here's the thing that I don't understand, right? For American and Delta, they have onward connections. United does not.
Which direction? Who's Delta have connections with?
Virgin. Virgin has some flights beyond Heathrow.
Eastbound?
Yeah, I mean, well, to Africa, to India.
Yeah, I would be skeptical that there's a lot of feed there, but better than nil. I mean, I would argue that that same Eurowings flight to Dusseldorf is going to have as many people as the Virgin Atlantic flight to Lagos did.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's a weak onward connection, especially just the way that Virgin sort of completely rejiggered its schedule to be a transatlantic operation after Delta took its stake.
Agreed. It doesn't give you a ton of options, but it's more than United has, because United doesn't have a partner other than intra-Europe. And Heathrow is not the airport to connect to if you want to connect into Europe.
I certainly agree with that last part of your statement. I would connect almost anywhere else if I'm trying to get to continental Europe.
But you know what's funny though, Foz, is that they sell it as a connection pretty frequently.
Oh no, I've seen it, but so let's look at Chicago and Newark. High jag and figs, not a lot of coach seats.
Yep.
Right. So how many people are buying business class tickets or premium economy to connect in Heathrow? I would argue not many.
Almost none. No, they're all going to London.
Right.
So is the demand to London that high?
I don't think so. I mean, before the pandemic, there were always empty seats on the Newark flights. Unless one canceled, there was always empty seats in the premium cabins.
Is that an indication that people aren't paying for it, though? And by which I mean, if you're selling enough relatively high-fare tickets, aren't you better off having seats available? Right? If you're selling all those business class tickets at $2,000 each, then yes, they all have to be full to make money and have a profit. But if you're selling them at $6,000 each, you can sell only half of them and still make 50% more money than selling them all at $2,000.
Right, but they were consistently, there was always op-ups, right? So the moment there's consistently op-ups, you're missized. Because that means you don't have enough capacity in the back, and you have too much capacity in the front.
And you were saying this was before the pandemic?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know op-up stats, but I'm not saying that no one's going to London anymore, but I'm a little skeptical, but also that clearly is a historically big market, and at least United seems to think there's some value in growing into London. So it's a lot.
I'll say this: I think I'm surprised that they're not spreading the Hy-J config out, right? And they're focusing it on New York. Let's say
Chicago too.
Well, yeah, okay, Chicago. But I'm saying to any of the other airports, right? Like, you're not going to put a Hy-J config on San Francisco?
I think that's partially cargo and partially the back cabin economics.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking like, okay, well, you could run a Houston London on a Hy-J.
But think about it, on a 777 or 789, you have the same number of J seats as the Hy-J config.
That's true.
Right, it's really more about the back cabin of how many coach seats do you need.
Well, think about it this way, Foz. If the 763s are so unreliable, then that's the reason you run an hourly flight. Because if one cancels, you just put them on the next one, and you'll have open seats.
You joke about that, but that's actually somewhat accurate.
I'm being serious.
I've had that happen.
As long as it's not the 11 p.m. that cancels, you're fine.
Yeah, exactly. No, they'll send you on the morning one tomorrow.
Oh, great. An extra 8 hours with OTG, that's just what anyone needs.
I'm glad we managed to get an OTG dig into this episode. It's been a while since I've
let's talk about ITA.
Fully justified, by the way. I'm not trying to defend them at all. It's just been a while since we've heard that. Sorry.
So ITA is joining SkyTeam. For now? The
fake Alitalia.
Yes.
Or the new Alitalia, whatever you want to call it, has signed an agreement to join SkyTeam, just like Alitalia had. The new loyalty program, I guess the good news is they're status matching. I don't want to say anybody and everybody, but like 25 different programs. So if you want SkyTeam status, that's a good way to get it for next year. And yeah, at least for now, that seems to be where they're going. I say for now because there's rumors that Lufthansa, they're in discussions with Lufthansa or Delta for a strategic investment. And if it happens to be Lufthansa, I have to assume that the SkyTeam partnership dies very quickly.
So wait a minute. They just rose from the ashes and they're already looking for cash.
Yeah. Dude, hang on, let's talk about how to be a startup. The whole point of being a startup is to raise more money.
But they're backed by the government.
Europe has rules about that.
So can we?
You have to throw away your loyalty program like every 3 years if you just want to reinfuse a new startup from the government. That's a pain in the ass.
Well, not if you fork off your loyalty program into its own company.
No, they had to get rid of whatever. I always say it wrong. Miglia.
Miglia. It sounds like a medical term.
I'll tell you, loyalty. They had to get rid of the loyalty program to satisfy European regulators that it was a different airline.
Yeah, I had to get rid of my myomiglia too. I mean, it caused me problems.
Do they have an ointment for that?
Try amoxicillin. Get you a Z-Pack. No, anyway, the loyalty program is a disaster, or a shit show at least. You can get a status match in. They're joining SkyTeam, but also they still have to sort of renegotiate all the bilateral agreements with all the other airlines. So even though they're officially a SkyTeam member, they don't have any of the benefits at the airport yet. Which, how hard could it be to put the stupid logo back on the signs and tell the gate agents who still work, who all worked for you before, to pretend that they care about elites again? Hey, remember when you used to make those announcements and sneer at people because they tried to board early? Yeah, do that again, please. It is very laughable how it's going, but it'll be interesting, especially if the Lufthansa bid wins to become their strategic partner, to watch that all very quickly disappear and then become a SkyTeam partner, presumably.
Or you mean
Star partner?
Starlines?
Starlines, yes. because I would have to assume at that point, if Lufthansa became, a part owner, they'd want them to move into the Miles and More program.
I mean, if that becomes the case, then I can redeem miles on them and fly them before they go out of business again.
Bonus.
Maybe they should say F this whole alliance thing and restart Wings.
Oh man. The other thing I'll put out there is that since we're talking about the legacy Alitalia program, Malmilia or whatever, still can get some benefits on Air France KLM and Middle East Airlines, its former partners. And let me see if I can find this email real quick. Do I have it? Yes, the program continues. I got an email this week reminding me that I still have an account there. If you go to mymiglia.com, miglia.com, you'll learn that you can also, they've established partnerships with 2 OTAs. And in a very short period of time, you'll be able to use your miles not only to request vouchers for car rentals, but also to buy buy flights or hotel plus flight packages. Mm-hmm. So apparently right now redemption is pretty much limited to rental car vouchers, which is kind of awkward.
I'm sure a friend of the show, Hendrik, may be able to take advantage of that at some level. He'll find a way. Yeah.
I don't know. I got a friend who's got 5 million miles flown with them, so I feel a little badly for him.
Does he get a free car?
So he got to ride in a special flight they did with the Tricolore, their military flight display team.
Oh, see, that's
he was like on board, and I think it was an MD-80 or something like that. And I looked out the window, and there's fighter jets blowing red, white, and green smoke. So that's pretty cool.
So I got to ask, 5 million miles on an Alitalia. It's not like they just went belly up overnight.
I don't know that he has 5 million award points sitting there. He's flown 5 million miles.
Again?
But in seat.
Knowing that they're always on the verge of insolvency, why would you continue flying with them?
Did he have to go to like South America and
he lives in Italy?
Okay, that's fair.
Was he flying them long haul a lot though? I guess that's
Milan-ish based and flying long haul. It made a sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Let's talk about Hyatt. We said we were going to talk about other hotel rules, but the Hyatt demand pricing went into effect a week ago?
I think about a week ago. They after a few delays, they finally kicked off peak and off-peak pricing.
Wow.
Okay.
The one decent program that was out there.
Have you tried to book any of the rewards or anything?
No, I meant to do it before this change, and I kind of forgot.
Gotcha.
So, is there anything still off peak?
I haven't even looked. I mean, generally, I will say I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that hoping they won't screw people too badly because historically they've been pretty good.
Yeah. And then lastly, we can talk about the rule changes for travel to the United States from international travelers. Yeah. So
next week, November 8th.
Yep. So if you're vaccinated, you can come to the United States with a test within 72 hours.
And something came out over the weekend for unvaccinated minors and how that works. And I should probably read that better. There was some confusion as to whether they would be permitted or not. Children, here we go. I'm pulling up here. Foreign national children who are not vaccinated do not need to quarantine upon arrival. There's a question of whether they had to quarantine or not.
Gotcha. They still have to do the test.
I guess children under 18 and participants in clinical trials do not have to quarantine, but I do believe they're still required to have a negative test to show up.
Gotcha. I mean, this is good news. The other caveat is if you're not vaccinated, including U.S. citizens, coming back, you have to have a test within 24 hours of your departure to come back to the United States. I think they just wanted to make it as inconvenient as possible for unvaccinated travelers.
Wait, say that again. Sorry. If you're unvaccinated, you have to have it. It's got to be within 24 hours. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, the odds of finding a test that's done and ready to go within 24 hours is
antigen tests are usually.
But is an antigen
historically it has been
valid? Okay. So I mean, maybe it's possible. I just know for some people it's not going to be possible.
Yeah, I think the U.S. government has done I'll say pretty good job, and you can use good to interpret good however you want at making being unvaccinated less than ideal position. So
I wish that what it was if you're vaccinated, you don't have to do a test coming in as a U.S. citizen, like coming home. I wish that was the case. That might actually get me to travel more, honestly.
Is that because you don't want to bother with a test, or you're worried about a false positive?
A little bit of both. I think it's a pain in the ass. I think also the false positive, the idea of like getting stuck. Like I just can't take the risk of getting stuck somewhere.
Yeah. I had a buddy going to the Dubai Air Show in a couple of weeks, and he did the research on what we were going to get for our tests coming home. He's like, yeah, I found this place. It's walking distance from the hotel. It's $41 US for a test in the drive-through, or I think $67 if you walk in. To which I responded, okay, well, as long as an Uber is less than $54 or whatever the difference was for the two of us to get the tests, I guess we're just going to pay an Uber to drive us over, take us through the drive-through COVID test, and drive us back to the hotel.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, should we walk over, stand out in front, and be like, "Hey, you guys going in for a test? Can we sit in your back seat for 4 minutes? Like, I'll give you $10. Like, I don't know.
It's not that far.
Apparently, it's walkable from the hotel that we're in.
Oh.
But I just like the fact that it's way more expensive
to walk in.
And yeah, 41 US if via drive-through, or 68 via walk-in. Guaranteed results in 24 hours.
Wow.
So yeah, $54 Uber, or we can walk over and like, I'm kind of tempted to walk over and like knock on the window of someone driving in and be like hitchhike my way through a COVID test in Dubai. Just
we need GoPro video of this if it happens.
Yeah.
Because that would be hysterical.
Honestly, doing it in the Uber would be pretty funny too, but
I can just see the Uber driver like, oh no, the test isn't for me, it's for these idiots.
Yeah. Sir, would you mind rolling down your window? Yes, I would mind immensely. It's the assholes in the back.
Yeah, I mean,
but in Arabic.
Yeah. I think that the having a false positive potential, or just finding a test and making sure you get it arranged, like even in your circumstances, like it's just a pain. I mean, why not reward vaccinated travelers to say, you don't have to do that. You're a U.S. citizen. Maybe it's too much for the airlines to deal with, and they just want to check everybody, make sure everybody's got the test, and that's it. So I don't know.
Yeah. I get where you're coming from. I'm not sure that if you're going to do that, do you really want to does citizen matter at that point? Like,
true.
Would that be where I'd draw the line? That's what I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
I mean, some of these European countries have dropped the testing requirement to come in if you're vaccinated. I feel like, why can't we at this point? I don't know. That's just my thought on it. So, in our bonus, we're going to talk about the high-speed rail, some Allegiant EarOps costs, and waltzing Matilda. We're going to talk about that a little bit. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, stay tuned. If you're not and you'd like to become one, you can always join at patreon.com, and or you can click on a link on the website or on Twitter. And thanks again for listening. Find us on Twitter at DotsLines, moredotsmorelines.com.
Can I give a shout out to our recent new patrons who have joined us?
Sure.
Jeff K, Austin G, Peter Allen, Connor. Appreciate you guys joining the party. So you'll get your early content and early access and extra content. So thank you.
Thanks for supporting the show. Till next time, happy travels.
Take care.
Bye-bye.